How's it going, everyone, and welcome to this video. Right here, you're about to see a pretty dramatic 13-year journey of me transforming my body. You're going to be able to see what I implemented to finally get some gains after struggling for years. And then you're going to see what happened to it all and where it all went wrong. So sit back, relax, and enjoy it. To start, guys, we're going to take it way back. I'm about 10 years old here, and as you can see, I'm a pretty chubby kid. I was into my swimming, into my outdoor pursuits, but I was always on the heavy side, on the chubby side. Now, to combat this, I started hitting the fitness classes with my mum. We're talking a lot of aerobics, a lot of running, a lot of sort of circuit training. I got into that, and luckily for me, there's a thing called puberty. So puberty here, you can see here, we jump into 2008 at 17 years old. Now, I want you to take notice of the wrists, okay, and my sort of bone structure. You can see I'm pretty skinny here. I'd done most of my growing and I'd reached the height. Right now, I sit at about 6'1", 183 centimeters. You know, I did all my growing, that massive growth spurt combined with doing a lot of that cardio work really stripped the fat off me. And as you can see, I was a pretty lanky kid. This is me on holiday in the Caribbean. Believe it or not, guys, at this point, I had actually been lifting for over a year. I started in the gym when I was about 16 years old. You can see some slight gains in the arms there, but still, you can see pretty noodle-like arms. This picture here really sort of says it all, guys. I've been in the gym for 1 year, and we're talking, you know, minimal gains. Maybe some ab definition coming in there. Guys, I thought I was jacked. You know, in this picture, there was a couple of friends next to me, and this is me sort of posing. I got into lifting originally because I had a couple of friends who had been lifting for about a year and a half, so they already had about half a year of lifting experience on me, and they were gains galore. I mean, you just look at the comparison here. It's night and day, and, you know, this guy here, good friend of mine on the left there, you know, he's still jacked today, and he hardly even works out, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But I was still at it. I was super dedicated. And in a minute, we're going to skip now to about 2010, 19 years old. Guys, I'd been working out in the gym at this point for about 3 years. You can see there's some very slight gains. You know, there's me in the club, rolling my sleeves up, thinking I was absolutely jacked. You know, 3 years of lifting, that mainly consisted of quite a lot of machine work. I went into the gym with my friends. We're talking, you know, 1 body part per session, you know, smash chest or smash back. A typical session would be, you know, start off with some cardio, do a little circuit around the machines, and leave. I hadn't, you know, no supplements, no sort of diet was implemented here. I didn't really know anything about that stuff. Yeah, 3 years on, guys, not a lot of gains to show for it here. Still 19 years old here. We go to uni, guys. You know, this is my first year of university. Now, I signed up for the uni gym, and I had a lifting partner. You can see quite a bit of drinking here, but not too much, because I was actually pretty serious about, you know, lifting and wanting to get bigger. Guys, I had this thing, like, I thought I was quite big. I was pretty dedicated to it. I was still doing, like, 1 day, you know, 1 body part a day splits, you know, 6 days a week usually. This was my good lifting partner here. We're on a little trip in the Azores here. I did the tight white shirts when I was like 19. I'm 20 years old here, and I do this sort of thing where I wear like a bit more of a baggier shirt, and I used to roll the sleeves up to try and show a bit of bicep there. Yeah, and I started, you know, really getting into it. We're into 2011 now. You know, a bit of Z's influence there. And guys, I was pretty serious with this lifting stuff. Like, I was pretty dedicated by this point. I was consistent. I forgot to mention, in my first year of uni, I actually did about 7 months on the rowing team. And by this point, guys, I still hadn't trained legs. I'd been in the gym for like 3 and 4 years, and I was strictly like no leg training whatsoever. I couldn't squat. Towards the end of this year, I did start to implement a bit of, you know, leg raises or leg press, but squats, hamstring raises, deadlifts, definitely not. I'm starting to eat more. I'm starting to become a bit more aware of nutrition. I started watching YouTube at this point, people like Nick Wright, Matt Ogus, and, you know, started getting some tips from them, and I realized, hey, I kind of need to up my eating game here. Now, I was actually starting to see some progress. And there's me with my lifting partner again. You can see, you know, a little bit of bicep coming in there. I used to wear these like medium tops, you know, just to kind of keep them nice and tight and milk any sort of gains that I had whatsoever. But, you know, I'm 20 years old here. I'm coming of age, if you like. And I remember actually taking this picture on a night out and being like, oh, I I remember choosing this as like my profile picture on Facebook or something, you know, proper douchey move. But there's me thinking I'm jacked, but you can see like the back there and the arms, you know, they are starting to come in. Still on this sort of one body part session in the gym, no leg training. Food wise, I was starting to drink protein shakes and things like that. I was big on supplements at this point, probably to my detriment. And you can see my little supplement collection here. I mean, you know, I was big into reading the fitness magazines, and that's an interesting point actually, because in terms of routines, this is where I started to think about, oh, maybe I need to implement a proper routine, not just this like bro split that I'd been doing for literally the first sort of 4 years. And this is where I started to get a bit confused, right? Because there was a lot of these conflicting articles in these magazines that would be like, hey, yeah, you need to do high reps and you need to like start with shoulder raises and don't do pressing work, and you know, and then in a few months time there'd be another article saying like you need to lift heavy and don't do high rep, you need to do low rep. And I started to get really confused as to like what the best sort of routine was. Anyway, by this point I switched it up a little bit to a bit more of a chest and tries, back and buys, and I had actually started training legs. The big movements though hadn't really entered my training regime. I've been in the gym now, I'm 20 years old, I've been in the gym for 4 years, and for 4 years of lifting in the gym, this is how I was looking. You know, and let's be honest, it's pretty lackluster. Anyway, we're turning 21 now, and the gains slowly starting to come in. You can see there behind me in my bedroom, guys. I was like big into this. Like, this is, you know, I started watching Pumping Iron. I started following like bodybuilding, the history of it, reading more books. It actually became a real big passion of mine. I was watching a ton of stuff on YouTube, and I managed to actually hold like a sort of a decent weight here. I hadn't ballooned. I was probably at about 185 pounds-ish here. You know, not any sort of real dedication to nutrition as such. I wasn't counting macros, nothing like that. For 5 years of lifting, guys, pretty disappointing at this point. I've been in the gym for 5 years. There's a bit of sporadic running for you there. And about this time, guys, I got a job in a nightclub. So as you can imagine, this sort of thing became a bit more popular, but I've never ever been a huge drinker, but I do it on occasion. And yeah, I started working in this nightclub, and here I'm turning 22 years old. I put this picture in here because you can kind of see a little bit there, the arms, you know, slowly starting to come in. I'd switched a couple of gyms, and this time training wise, guys, I'm still doing a sort of bodybuilding, classic bodybuilding split, but very much that, you know, chest and tries, back and buys, like I mentioned before. No real arm day or anything like that. You know, I'd go in, I'd smash like maybe three exercises for each body part. Again, rep ranges, we're talking like 8 to 12. I wasn't really very good at tracking my progress or anything like that. Again, this whole thing, I had this good friend here, I worked with him in this bar, and he only needed to look at a weight and he was jacked. He could like skip the gym for 3 months and he would just be the same. And that used to really frustrate me, guys, and that is quite key for what's going to come in a little bit later. The fact that I would often be concerned about how other people were progressing. I was looking at these people online who were probably, you know, juicing, and I was often like comparing it to my real like lack of gains, and I didn't really appreciate what I'd sort of done. So here's me at Body Power, guys, meeting Ronnie Coleman, Larissa Reese, and these guys, Chris Lovato and Matt August here, 22 years old. And I remember telling Matt August, I'd watched his video, and he had been training Jim Wendler's 531. It's like a powerlifting program, and that's when I first started getting into training like the big movements. And I actually ran that program, Jim Wendler's 531, for about 8 months, and I saw some decent progress. I managed to get my deadlift up to about 130, 140 kilograms. So I'd started training those big movements at this point. For 4 or 5 years of lifting, I really wasn't satisfied, to be honest, with my progress. And I thought, hey, maybe I need to, you know, incorporate some of these big movements like these YouTubers are doing now. And so, yeah, I went on to the Jim Wendler's 531, guys, and frustrated by my sort of lack of gains, I decided to bulk hard. You know, I was working night shifts in this nightclub, you know, finishing at like 6 in the morning. We'd hit up McDonald's afterwards, smash a McDonald's breakfast, 2 bowls of porridge, breakfast wraps, like a serious dirty bulk. This is us going to the butchers to collect a load of meat, just meat on bulk. And I went hard, like seriously hard. Hard to the point, guys, where I got to over 200 pounds. I'm weighing in here, no joke, at like 205. So I literally put on about 35 pounds. But that was my goal. Like I said, I remember telling Matt Ogus, I was like, hey, I'm putting on £1 a week. And he was like, dude, that's 52 pounds in a year. I was like, oh, I didn't really think of it like that. So I bulked hard, guys. This is me on holiday in Greece, I think it is. And I didn't realise that I'd got to this size. I was really just paying attention to the scales rather than like how I looked. And I remember my friend bought me these swimming shorts, and he was like, oh yeah, these are your Daniel Craig swimming shorts. And I thought I was I thought I was like hench at this point, you know, I really did. And it was only after I got back from this holiday and I looked at these pictures, I honestly couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how fat I'd gotten. I was just so focused on like the frustration, the lack of gains. I just bulked hard, and I bulked way too hard. And it was this point, guys, I was following Matt Ogus, and I decided to hire this guy as my coach. This is Bryce from the Strength Athlete. I'd had a little bit of success with Jim Wendler's 531. I'd stuck to the program, you know, for the longest time. I quite enjoyed having a solid program. And anyway, I hired this guy as my coach. I remember sending him these pictures, you know, for the first time. I really acknowledged like, wow, I've got up to like over 200 pounds. I didn't realize how that would look on my frame. You know, I'm not built to be like 200 pounds, but I saw these people who were like, yeah, I'm 200 pounds, I'm jacked. And I just wanted to be like that. Bryce, you know, he got me on a proper program. He educated me on macros. He, you know, educated me on lifting form. You know, I got some squat shoes, I got the bands, I got all the gear. And yeah, we really set to work. You know, squat form, he was coaching me on how to do the big lifts properly, and that was the main difference here. I really focused for the first time on getting my numbers up on the big lifts. So workouts, I worked out about 5 times a week, doing the main lifts, and we also incorporated things like, when I say main lifts, I mean bench press, squat, and deadlift. We also were incorporating things like, you know, speed work, band work, some accessory movements here with like the triceps, the dips. You know, we were overhead pressing, of course, with the military press, doing lots of floor press. And I want you to pay attention to this one, guys. I'm the floor pressing here. This is back when I'm 22 years old, and I'm floor pressing here with 38 kilogram dumbbells, okay? And pretty easy as well. I think I'm maybe doing 8 reps or something. Here, you know, more some T-bar rows. And guys, this was the first time that I was, you know, I'd been dedicated up to this point. Like, I didn't miss workouts. You know, I made a conscious effort to eat. I even though I drank and stuff, you know, compared to a lot of uni students, I hardly did much of that at all. You know, I slept well, kept stress down, and my lifts went up. You know, this is me hitting a PR, I think about 155 or almost hit 160 kilograms on the deadlift there, up from about 130 on the previous sort of Jim Wendler program. And yeah, you know, I was doing pause squats, and my squat form actually looking pretty good there. I was maxing out, you know, on these like test weeks and things, and I made progress, guys. During this time, of course, I was hitting the macros, you know, and I was doing it seriously. You know, you can see my macros here. I was doing 200, and I literally nailed these macros. 200 protein. I was on 420 carb, I think it was, about 400 carb and 70 fat. And I was nailing it, guys. I was doing a sort of like if it fits your macros type thing, but I was making good choices which made it easy to fit into my macros. We've got some chicken and sweet potato here, you know, oats. I ate loads of oats during this time. You know, I was weighing things. You've got egg whites here, green tea. I started doing pre-workout, just smashing the coffee. I enjoyed it because I was sticking to a plan and I was seeing progress. So my weight dropped and I started doing some cardio. I was running to work during this time. And guys, my weight dropped and my lifts went up. I got stronger and I dropped the body fat, which was perfect. This is me again back at Body Power, and guys, I dropped down to under 180 pounds. So I lost that 30 pounds in the space of like 8 months. And I remember taking this picture here in my hallway and being like, yeah, you know, I was 23 years old at this point. We were in 2014 and I hit the most muscular. And you can see here the comparison. You know, this is 8 months of work. And you can see that I dropped a considerable amount of body fat. I definitely put on muscle during this time. So I do genuinely believe during this time I definitely put on muscle and I dropped body fat. But I had a lot of body fat to lose. And I was super, super dedicated, guys. And I was really proud, you know. I stuck to it for 8 months, doing even the boring stuff like mobility work. You know, even things like just, what are those things called with the squat bar? Squat holds, you know, where you just hold a ridiculous amount of weight on your back. And yeah, guys, 8 months, you know, I dropped a few more pounds. I think I got down to about 178. And I remember looking at this picture and being like, yeah, okay, finally. You know, here I'm 23 years old. This is 6 years of lifting. Way later than a lot of people, but finally I looked like I lift. You know, the traps came in from all that deadlifting. The arms got bigger from the accessory movements. You know, I was just doing the main things like barbell bicep curls, training 5 days a week here. I got stronger on the main lifts, and you can see that 8 months between these pictures. A considerable improvement. But guys, this isn't like my peak, okay? This isn't my peak physique. I took myself on a little trip to Barcelona with that little physique. Fantastic. And then I moved to China. If you're a follower of the channel, you know I used to live in China. So here's me, you know, training in China. This is my first year in China. I'm 23 years old. This is actually during a thing they called Spring Festival, where literally all the gyms were closed. So I went, I bought some dumbbells. I'm laying on some what are these called? Some stools here. And just to show you guys, I did not miss workouts. I was super dedicated. Now, by this time, Bryce wasn't coaching me because I was moving to China. I was moving away. I knew I couldn't really pursue the powerlifting thing. And to be honest, guys, like, even though I'd made loads of progress, I was still very disappointed in the numbers I was putting up, because again, I was still comparing myself. People like my coach or people who were, you know, in the same gym as me, who were younger than me, like they looked smaller than I did, and they were deadlifting like 200 kilograms already, and there's me doing like 150, and I just was like, oh well, maybe powerlifting isn't for me. Out in China, you know, I tried to eat clean, I tried new things like boxing, and this is what I sort of looked like when I was out of the gym, sort of no pump, right? I kept the sort of same weight roughly. I want to say, you know, I'm probably about 180 pounds here, and but I still kept, you know, I kept working out, I kept in the gym, and actually during this time, guys, I was actually making more gains. Bryce had educated me, you know, on macros. That was super important. So I had my diet was a lot better, right? My diet was in check, and I actually switched during this time. I knew how to do the big lifts, and during this time I switched to a different program, which was basically working off percentages, right? I think it's like Bulgarian Junior method or something like that. So I'd start on Sundays with legs, right? The main movement would be the squat. The first week would be 5 sets of 6 reps at like 70% of your 1 rep max. So I'd write down my 1 rep max, I'd work out my percentages, and then each like month I would add 5 kilograms to my maximum squat and deadlift, and for the bench press and the overhead press I would add 2.5 kilograms. With the percentages taken into account each month, you know, you're basically adding just a small amount of weight each month, and I was really putting in the work. Now, it's frustrating because I was actually writing this stuff down and I didn't keep the training log. I don't know where it went, got lost in China somewhere. But guys, I was actually writing my workouts down, and I had this goal of deadlifting 200 kilograms, benching over 100 kilograms, and I smashed it, guys. I stuck to the percentages. You know, I would do my main lifts, then I would do accessory movements. I was training 6 times a week, squat, bench, dead, twice every week. A crazy amount of volume, right? I don't know how I managed it. I was eating a lot. I was doing a lot of resting. I wasn't working super hard, so I had a lot of time to do that. And here we are, guys, moving to 2015. I'm 24 years old here. And you can see the gains. Okay, you can see the gains. So after my first year in China, I was going to have a trip to the USA. So I decided I needed to cut down again. And I really, really did. The diet that worked here for me was what I call now the China diet. Literally, guys, every day for about 5 months. And bearing in mind, I had a goal. I had hit my big lifts. Now I was off to the States and I wanted to look the best I ever had. I was so dedicated at this point. I didn't drink any alcohol during this time. Literally every day I woke up, I had a protein shake that was like 2 scoops of whey, 500 milliliters of milk. I had frozen banana in there and frozen apple. I had that every day for breakfast. Then for my 2 other meals, guys, I would have 3 chicken breasts spread over those 2 meals. I would have 400 grams of rice, and I would fry in with the rice about 10 eggs, probably about 3 whole eggs and the rest just egg whites. I would chop up some bell peppers in there as well and fry that together. And for like 4 or 5 months, that's all I ate every day. And it worked. It really, really worked. I managed to keep my strength up because I was doing the big lifts. I was trying to push myself with the percentages. And these are some of the best pictures you're going to see. You know, the gains were definitely there. I was feeling good. I felt lean. I dropped another 10 pounds after all the work I'd done with Bryce Lewis. And, you know, my deadlift and things like that went up from like 150 to over 200 kilograms. So I got way stronger, and I did this cut. And here's me out in the States, like absolutely loving life. You know, I look at some of these pictures now, and yeah, I looked good. But I was still felt like I was just too thin, too skinny, just not enough muscle on my frame. You know, I felt good, but I just threw in this picture here, by the way, because like this is the picture I've got where my hair was looking awesome. And if you follow the channel, you know the irony of that. And guys, I was feeling good. This time I really loved wearing these like baggy, deep cut tops because, you know, I had the traps pop in, the chest was kind of popping out a bit, and this is after the States when I get back, guys, and just look at that there. Like, this is pretty much the best my physique has looked. You know, I was strong, I was low body fat. We're talking like 172 pounds I hovered in. You can see I haven't got a huge amount of muscle on my frame, but I was really lean, which was awesome. Now, guys, at this time, I went back to China, and as you see, I was rocking the long hair there. And this is a really, really honest representation of how my physique is looking. Now, you might be thinking, a bit weird, why are you taking these sort of pictures? And, guys, I was frustrated at this point, okay? I had actually gotten injured. So I'd come back from the States. I was still doing a bit of deadlifting, things like that, but I was off my program. And it was actually during this time, guys, I had injured my shoulder and I'd injured my right knee. And that's absolutely key for the sort of how this story plays out, right? So I'd injured my shoulder actually back when I was working with Bryce, and I was so dedicated to pushing the gains. I just didn't let it heal at all. I just completely worked around it, right? I injured it because I didn't warm up properly one day. I went in for like a heavy up, you know, a heavy bench session. I was doing some incline barbell presses, didn't warm up properly. And yeah, I felt something kind of, you know, not a tear, but I really strained it really bad, and I didn't rehab it. I was so afraid of losing the gains that I had gotten. I didn't rehab it properly. So that's going to be absolutely key for the remainder of this story. So I'd hurt my chest. I didn't want to lose the gains because these gains were so hard to get. I had to work so hard to achieve them for a long time. I really dedicate myself. You know, no workouts were missed. I stuck to the macros and everything like to a T. And I was so afraid to take time off and out at the gym. So I tried my best to work around it, and it really never healed properly. I was still trying to do the lifts, and of course I would have to use different muscles to kind of compensate for the lack of range of motion. I couldn't, you know, do the lifts properly. And so basically the right shoulder and the sort of chest area just healed. Eventually it healed, but in a sort of awkward way, right? And I lost range of motion there, whether it was scar tissue or what, I'm not sure. And after that as well, I went on and injured my knee. Apart from that time with Bryce Lewis, guys, I have strongly neglected mobility work. And my right sort of ankle, hamstring, my whole sort of right leg, I always thought it was because it was longer, and it might still be the case. Anyway, my squat form was obviously not ideal, and I hurt my right knee. So this time I'm super frustrated, and I hired another coach. Now the coach I hired this time was Evan Goodby, okay? He's not really on YouTube anymore, but he had me on a 5-day split. It was legs, push, pull, rest, upper, lower. And it was a lot sort of lower volume than I was used to. But you see me working out here in the gym, and this is the exact time when I was doing this program, and I wasn't on it for long. I want to say about 3 or 4 months. I was just, you can see me wearing this knee sleeve here. I was just so frustrated that I felt like I wasn't serious again. I didn't have that sort of aim, and I basically one day, like I always do, I'm on YouTube, see this guy, he looks jacked, right? How does he train? Oh, he's a coach as well. And I thought, right, if I'm paying someone to coach me, maybe I'll be serious about it again, because I'd come back from, basically I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. I came back from the States, back to China, and I really lost a bit of passion, a bit of motivation. And I thought, well, if I pay someone to coach me, maybe they can help me through this injury. I can, have a sort of new lease of life on it. And it sort of worked. I held on to the gains quite nicely. And you're about to see the physique here. This now, I've filled out quite a bit more, okay, because I'm not so depleted. Basically, I was eating more again here, and I hadn't put on loads of fat. So I filled out from when I was in the States, which was literally off the back of a pretty drastic cut there with the China diet, as I described. And this is me filling out, I'm not on any strict macros really. I was supposed to be, but I was super relaxed on it. Like I followed the training properly, but I didn't follow his diet advice properly. The diet advice that he gave was a bit sort of less stringent than Bryce had given me, just sort of gave me a few numbers and not much more. But guys, I look back on these pictures and this sort of video, and yeah, like I was like, oh, I'm pretty jacked. And I am. I've still got the back from the deadlifting here. I've still got the arms, still got the shoulders. My chest is starting to go at this point because I wasn't doing heavy bench press at the time, and I'd stopped deadlifting this time as well. But that is pretty much where it begins to tail off. Guys, at this point, I'd been so frustrated with the injury to my leg. I wasn't deadlifting heavy. I was lost. 100% I was lost. And at this time, I started watching videos about CrossFit, right? So I discovered these videos on YouTube of CrossFitters, and I was absolutely mesmerized at how jacked these dudes were. Again, I couldn't really recognize. Now, I look back on those pictures that you just saw there now of like my peak, and I think like, wow, like you actually look pretty good. But I was just constantly searching for more and more and more. I was never satisfied. I couldn't really recognize like what I'd achieved, which is so weird, because in the beginning I was like, oh, I'm jacked, and I was nothing. And then, as I got older, we're talking 25 years old now. Even though I had a pretty decent physique, I just couldn't see it. I just always compare myself to, oh, I'm super skinny. Anyway, guys, I started this YouTube channel where the whole idea of it was like you can learn how to do anything. I was looking at these CrossFitters, and I was like, okay, like where can I start with this? I don't really have a CrossFit gym. And I decided I was going to learn how to handstand walk. So that's what this stuff is. And I documented it, guys. And you can see there in the last clip, handstand walk, week 2, this isn't easy. Basically, after 2 weeks, like the progress just completely stagnated. I mean, 2 weeks, I didn't really give myself a lot of time to progress. Progress stagnated, guys, and I got bored with it, and I just sacked it off. So not only had I wasted loads of time doing these like half-assed CrossFit type things, I was no longer lifting heavy. I no longer had a program. I was back to doing this sort of random bodybuilding splits. This is me and my now wife when we sort of met, and that was the last time you're going to see that long hair, because I cut my hair short and I sort of held on to the gains here. You know, here I am, 26 years old. We're talking about, you know, maybe 3 months after that sort of last clip you saw me. Obviously, I've got an epic pump here, and I'm sort of flexing for the win. You can see me here doing a bit of a shoulder workout, and I'm actually holding like a decent weight. You can see I've put on a few pounds. I'm probably creeping back up to about 180 pounds here. Training wise, guys, like, I'm in the gym. Coincidentally, this is back at Spring Festival. And my mate had a little sort of gym set up, so I went around there to sort of have a whirl, doing some rear delts there. And basically, I'm just taking this video so I can see how my physique was progressing, because I was frustrated at this point. I had no real goal. I wasn't doing the big lifts anymore. I wasn't following any sort of diet plan. I wasn't counting my macros. All of that had gone to pot, and I'd basically reverted to what I was doing when I was back in uni. I mean, you see me literally here, like, what am I doing? Doing a bit of reverse flies, you know, weight super light. Just no structure to my training whatsoever. But I had kept hold of my gains still. You know, I'd put on some fat, so you can see, like, I'm not looking as big, I'm not looking as shredded, but I was still holding on to the gains. And you can see here, you know, 26 years old still. We're in 2017 now. Here's me just trying to check for the gains. And guys, I want you to pay attention to how I'm like messing around with my bloody shoulders and things like that now, because this is where I really notice that I've got a problem with my right shoulder. Like, the scapula, the shoulder, it just doesn't move how it should. There just isn't that range of motion, and this really compromised my chest workouts. Okay, I just could not contract my right pec properly, so I wasn't doing heavy bench press. You can see here on the left hand side, with the side I'm wearing my watch, that pec is already way bigger than the one on the right. So I'm already starting to lose gains in my right pec because I just can't contract it properly. I think everything was just like internally rotated. My shoulder was taking over. And guys, I just wasn't putting the effort in to fix this. I didn't want to spend the time off the weights to fix my problem with like mobility and do stretching. I was half-assing like some foam rolling. I bought, you know, and I'd do it for like a week and then I'd just sack it off. So here's me trying to check the gains, guys, and the gains are slowly fading away. You can see here some update pictures. I think I just did these randomly to see for myself, like, if I sort of lost my gains. And you can see here in the gym, like, you know, you can see it slowly starting to fade. The chest is hanging on there, barely. My midsection's obviously got a lot fatter. Legs, never been a strong point for me. They're like super long, and my squat has just always been whack, abysmal. The most I ever squatted was like 105 kilograms, I think. Because it's 2017. I've been in the gym now, what was I saying? It's 26. Holy shit, that's 10 years. Guys, at this point, I'm 10 years into my lifting journey. And you can see from these pictures here, I am regressing. Okay, I am 100% going backwards. Just threw these in here, just sort of no pump, just to sort of show you what it's about. I've still got those old pictures, those 2 pictures I saved from university. You can see them on my fridge there. Still nice and vascular. You can see there in the old forearms. Obviously, the heat was bringing it out. But bit of a belly on me. I'm at the moment here at probably about 185 pounds. But guys, basically, over the next good sort of year or 2 years, I was constantly trying to get back to where I was at doing these percentage-based programs and things like that. But my knee had been injured and it just never felt right after that point. And my shoulder was kind of just whacked up. And basically what I did in terms of training is I would be like, right, I need to reset myself. I need to go back to basics like I did with Bryce all those years back, work on my form, lighten up the weights. I can't do as much as I used to do. And it was just literally every month I would like have the weights super light, get really nice, good form on it. I'd be happy with it. Here's me sinking nice and deep into a squat. Like, the form looks decent, to be fair. Not strong in that position. I'm doing high bar squat here. which is quite difficult with my sort of long femurs and whatnot. But hey, I'm just making excuses because the real issue, to be honest, was my mobility, my range of motion. But you see me here doing it, just checking like, okay, yeah, form's good there. Okay, yeah, not bad form there with that squat. And it would literally just be every month, I would add maybe like 5 kilograms by the end of that month. Then something wouldn't feel right. I'd have a bad workout. You know, my knee would be feeling not good, or I couldn't feel the contractions. And then the month after that, I would say, right, I need to go back and fix the form again. And literally, I just went round and round and round. By this point, because my training wasn't inspiring me at all. By the way, at this point, I've lost my hair. I shaved it off, gone bald. Literally, yeah. The diet went out the window, guys. Like, my daily diet literally consisted of, like, I'm in China, cooking. When I cooked, I would have that shake still quite a lot for breakfast or post-workout or something. But guys, I was eating like McDonald's every day. And they had a thing over there called CSC. I'd literally have this like fried chicken steak with rice, potato. I'd get an extra like chicken leg. I'd have Coke. I was drinking a ton of coffee at this point. And you can see here, literally, like, I've put on loads of weight. I'm rocking like very high 180s, not strong anymore. You know, you can see I'm a bit lopsided in the lats. And, you know, I was kidding myself, like, saying I'm bulking. You can see me again here, just like fiddling around constantly with my shoulder. It just never felt right. You know, I hadn't given it the time, and I just never recovered from it. And you can see the physique here, guys. It's just, you know, the legs are still kind of hanging on, a bit fat, never been strong. And look at the bellies there, you know, compared to how I was looking 2 years before this. I mean, it's night and day, guys. It's complete night and day, 100%. You see these pictures here, lopsided lats. Just like not fun at all. I was doing these, guys. Again, this is classic. I was doing these progress pictures because I was like, right, now, no, I need to sort this out. I need to get back. Literally, since I hit my peak after America and the sort of 6 months after that, when I sort of stopped the strict regime, stopped the strict diet, it was just a constant every month or 2 months. Like, no, I'm going to get myself in check now. Like, right, start taking progress pictures, start getting the diet in check. And I just sack it off. Training wise, this was, again, I was just doing like bodybuilding splits, and I fell into that trap again of just like searching for the next best thing. Like, oh, should I be training twice a week instead of 6? Maybe I'm doing too much volume. I've bought so many different training programs over the years. Like, what's that guy? Ben Pekulski, he's got a training program that I followed for like 12 weeks. Jeff Nippard, he did a legs push pull. The guys from 3DMJ, I bought their ebooks, and like, you know, they tell you quite clearly how to sort of train. Matt Ogus, I looked back into them, tried to do the percentage thing again, but like a different version. Switching programs all the time because I just wanted the next best thing. You know, I just felt like I'd never really found what truly... I felt like I'd never... Looking back, it's obvious, right, what worked for me, but I felt like I never really knew what had worked for me in terms of, you know, training, maximum results. And I just constantly felt like, look, I'm just not making any gains here. And so I thought the answer was, right, I'm just obviously not on the optimal training program. I'm not on the optimal training program. I'm not training the right way. These guys are bigger than me. How do they train? And I just jumped to do what they were doing. So here we are, 2017, 26 years old, guys. And yeah, not good. Not good at all. Not doing the big lifts anymore, really. Just haphazardly training. No real diet. And that's the result. That is the result. Now, this is me out in Thailand training on holiday. So I'm still super dedicated, guys. They had a buffet in this hotel, and I would make sure I woke up every morning. I'd go smash the buffet. I'd get the chicken in the morning, the eggs. You know, I was still trying to eat, get my protein in, trying to train on holiday. I was in this gym all the time, but I wasn't following any strict program. I was bullshitting with a lot of things like this. Like, oh, maybe I need to get up at 5 a.m. and go for a run because I saw someone talk about doing that, and I'd start doing it. Now, I just want to point out, I don't regret doing any of these things because by trying these things, you learn what works and what doesn't, but you have to recognize when something works, and you have to stick with it. So here we are, we're going to jump to 2019 now. This is when I was on this Ben Pakulski program. To be fair, the legs portion of this, they had some good machines in this gym. They had a really good hack squat machine, which allowed me to squat with like proper form and really feel the sort of work on my quads, which I enjoyed that part of it. But again, you know, I ran this program for like 2 months, I think it was, had me doing super light weights and like really sort of slow tempo, feeling the contractions. And you know, I don't knock this way of training, but I had just switched up my training too often to kind of really feel the benefits of everything. And we're going to jump here again. I'm 28 years old here. This is just before I was about to come home back from China, and this is me like, right, my shoulder is still giving me jip. I can't bench press. I can't contract my chest properly. Right, what can I do about it? And I started trying to do these exercises, these like band pulls. And so you see me here mucking around all the time with my sort of shoulder blades, trying to retract them properly, and they won't. And, you know, I'm not really taking the mobility work really seriously. Interestingly enough, you can see if you check out my right shoulder there, you can see that the front delt is like way bigger than the front delt on the left. And that's because like when I'm doing my pressing exercises that should be for the chest, that delt is like really taking over. You also see it's interesting in my body composition here. I hold a lot of fat in the like lower portion, in the sort of love handles and around the belly, which is pretty common for men, to be honest. But you can really see it here. And guys, with my shitty diet, you know, like I said, with the McDonald's and stuff like that, I'm still on that stuff. Yeah, I got up to just teetering, you know, almost at 190 pounds. So by this point, guys, I'm back from China, right? And I went pretty mental with the food because I had had 5 years there of, you know, not being able to eat the foods that I like. A lot of bacon sandwiches, and I mean a lot. And yeah, to be honest, I was about 185 pounds, but don't forget I've lost a ton of muscle at this point. Like there's no question about that. You can just look at my physique here. You can see I've gained fat, I've lost muscle, 100%. And yeah, this is me, guys, filming a video because I was like, again, I was back from China. I had access to, you know, different foods, and I was like, look, I need to get this in check now. This is a good opportunity for me to share this journey, you know, through trying to get my gains back. So let's do it. And it's just the same bullshit, guys. You know, I'm just going to give it to you straight. It's embarrassing for me to talk about it, to be honest, but I need to be honest. I need to be honest with myself. And I was just talking about myself. I didn't really want it that much. I didn't really believe in it. I wasn't really dedicated to it. I was still training, but these last like 3 years are the absolute definition, guys, of just spinning your wheels in the gym. Not writing down your progress, not tracking like my food intake or having a proper diet. I had no clear goal other than, you know, lose fat, gain muscle, which isn't a clear definitive goal. Here's me like, yeah, look, I'm 184 pounds, like I'm on a diet now, which literally lasted like I don't know, 2 weeks or something. You know, I'd just sit in my office. I was working from home at this point, and I'd just smash the bacon sandwiches. I'd have the cake. I just had no real discipline. This is really telling here, guys. This is me trying to sumo deadlift, and this is what, 105 kilograms on the bar here. Bearing in mind, I'd, you know, deadlifted up to 200, weighing 170 pounds. Now I'm 185, so I'm 15 pounds heavier, guys. And I literally do 3 reps of this sumo deadlift. And I was like, wow. It felt heavy, it felt off, it felt wrong. And given, you know, I've been a long time not consistent with the main lifts, but this honestly just felt embarrassing and really, really unmotivating. At this point, again, program-wise, I was just BSing with some random thing I'd probably seen online, or, you know, someone come out with a new YouTube video saying like, oh yeah, that you need to train this way. And this is me, like, instead of doing mobility work, I was like, oh, maybe my glutes need work. Just not sticking to it, guys. I've really paid attention to this because this is like this is not long ago now. We're coming up to pretty close to present day, and you can just see here me. For ages, I'm just messing about on my shoulders, trying to get that scapula retracted properly, because it has been I mean, how long has it been? Guys, it's literally been 5 years since that sort of injury, and just because I didn't rehab it properly, I didn't pay enough attention to my mobility work, I just slowly let the gains slip away. I couldn't execute the proper movements, and I didn't have a real plan. Very unmotivated. I was still going to the gym all 5-6 days a week, still trying to eat enough protein, but very, very inconsistent diet-wise. No serious discipline diet-wise. No mobility work, which has really compromised my range of motion. I wasn't sticking to a regimented workout plan with clear ways to systematically overload the muscles. I wasn't writing my workouts down, guys, and you saw it there. Look at me here, okay? I mentioned there doing floor press with 38 kilograms when 5 years ago, floor pressing the 38 kilograms, and here's me messing around trying to get my form right. And this was a struggle. You know, I'm not saying it was a struggle to lift properly, but I cannot get the form right at all. You know, I'm like, oh, do I need my back more arched? I need to like wiggle the weights around. And this is just what my training consisted of. Like I said, for 2 years ago when I was back in China, right? Just constant, like the weights are down and I'm just trying to get my form right. I'm trying to use the muscles I'm supposed to be using. And it was just this constant, every 2 months, this cycle of like, lower the weights, try to get it right, then I'd put the weights up a bit, then I'd have a few bad workouts, I'd see people, you know, had switched up their routine, and I'd switch it up again, and I'd do the same thing again and again, and making absolutely no progress. You can see here, guys, remember those clips in the first, I'm bench pressing here 30 kilograms, and it's a struggle. I remember close grip pressing over 90, you know, for my accessory work. After like 8 months of proper lifting. And there's lessons to be learned here. And let's bring it up to present day, and I want to just kind of go over the lessons to be learned. So there you go, guys, that brings us up to present day, right? And you can quite clearly see the things that worked for me and the things that didn't. You can see that when I had a systematic approach, that percentage program, when I got my diet in check, you know, I was following macros and I was following them to a T. I got into a routine and I stuck to it. Those are the two things that gave me the most progress by far. You can see there in the beginning and at the end, when I was training haphazardly, when I had no real structure, I really had really poor results. The two biggest things that led to the sort of downfall in training was, one, switching my training program up far too often, constantly thinking that there was this new thing that was going to get me the most gains, this new training program that was going to be far better than the one I'd used before. I was constantly switching up my training programs, right? I would follow a program for a couple of months, and then I would get excited about a new video I'd seen, this new training method, and I'd switch to the next thing. And I didn't give myself enough time in a solid program to make progress in it. And the other thing I did really badly was a complete lack of mobility work. I think the lack of mobility work led to me getting injured in the first place. Of course, you know, I didn't warm up properly as well. And then when I got injured, I didn't rehab the injury properly, and I didn't include mobility work in that to get those range of motions back there. I was so afraid of losing the gains, so I couldn't execute the exercises properly after that. And yeah, it just slowly faded away. So it was actually really good for me to go back through, you know, all of the whole journey, right? And I really hope you guys enjoyed watching it as well. You can clearly see the things that worked, so you can go away and implement those in your own training. You know, if you're at the start of your journey, I hope this is a bit of an eye-opener and you can really learn from my mistakes. You know, I'm gonna be 30 next year and I'm ready to get into the best shape I ever had. You know, it's so crazy looking back, because now I know myself, and it sounds ridiculous, but now I really know what works for me, and I'm just ready to get going with it. So I want to thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.